Episode 3 was one thing, but Episode 4? Yeah, Pluribus just got a lot more interesting, and we have a whole laundry list of things to discuss. Warning, spoilers ahead. Not much happens in Episode 3, except for, an actual grenade going off.
Carol, if we may.
Carol learns the hard way that the hive mind will totally bring her a functional explosive device if she asks for one, even after taking the very likelihood of her being sarcastic into account. The big boom sends Zosha to the hospital with some pretty major-looking wounds, but she's okay. After the literal dust settles, Carol goes on to learn that not only will the hive mind bring her a grenade if she wants one, but they'll even bring her a nuclear bomb if she says pretty please.
Ultimately, yes. Wouldn't necessarily feel good about it.
That answers one question we've had about the hive mind up until this point, while simultaneously spawning a whole slew of new ones. Will they actually show her how to use it after bringing it to her? They gave Samba America's nuclear football, but apparently didn't provide him with any instructions. It's not like he would do anything with it anyway, he's having the time of his life. Would they take measures to counter Carol's nuke if she found a way to successfully deploy it? We don't see why not, since it would obviously save lives instead of taking any. But who knows with these people? Why haven't they already destroyed the nukes? It's not like a utopian world has any use for them, unless they're taking the unlikely but still very relevant possibility of an enemy alien race showing up to wreck the planet later on into account. Our heads are spinning, so we're gonna move on for now. But worry not, we'll touch more on this subject later. As we mentioned before, there are a generous handful of interesting developments in Episode 4. One of the most illuminating moments is a conversation that Carol has with a guy named Larry, who is, of course, just a hive mind, but you know what we mean. During this convo, Carol learns that the hive mind can't not be honest with her, even if it means hurting her feelings. It does take some convincing on her part, but they eventually cave. She proves this by asking them what Helen really thought about her work when she was still alive. Unsurprisingly, she wasn't much of a fan of her bestsellers.
She thought they were harmless.
But Carol is quietly devastated to learn that Helen wasn't too fond of her unpublished passion project either.
If she hated it so much, why did she tell me to publish it?
She talked to Val, and they agreed that it wouldn't hurt your career, and it would make you happy.
Though Carol doesn't say it out loud, we think there's a part of her that respects the hive mind for its honesty, at least in this context. It's one way they're actually better than a lot of humans tend to be. A truth that hurts can often be much less harmful than a sweet lie, but a lot of us aren't strong enough to be this real with the ones we love. Philosophizing. Philosophizing aside, the revelation gives Carol an idea. Since they can't lie, she decides to just ask Zosha the most important question there is. Can this friendly, all-encompassing takeover of Earth be reversed? Turns out it absolutely can, but it's not that simple.
We want so much to please you, Carol, but we can't answer questions like that.
Yep, the hive mind has to be honest with her about everything, except when it comes to specifics about the joining. Because giving up the deeds would, of course, betray their biological imperative to assimilate all human beings and bring everyone down, or up if you're a hive mind stan, to their level. Definitely a disappointing caveat. But this is way too big of a development for Carol to just say shucks and go back to watching Golden Girls. Instead, she heads off to the pharmacy to find some sodium thiopental, which is essentially truth serum. She tests it on herself first, which has some predictably hilarious results.
It's Zosha. Oh, you didn't catch your name because I knew her name, Zosha. You're a idiot. Whatever.
Then she doses Zosha with it in hopes of getting her to spill the beans. While it looks like it might work for a second, things take a bit of a dark turn. The hive mind realizes what she's trying to do almost immediately and swarms her outside of the hospital, which causes Carol to freak out and tell them to step away. They reluctantly oblige, but Zosha goes into cardiac arrest, and the credits roll before we find out if she lives or dies. Guess we'll have to wait till next week to find out. Going back to the part where Carol tests the truth serum on herself, it's during this segment that we're able to confirm something that we assumed before but didn't have concrete proof of. Carol is attracted to Zosha.
Why she gotta be so damn
This makes sense considering how the hive mind found someone who very closely resembles the original version of the heroine Carol wanted to serve as the main character of her historical fiction series. Remember that she was forced to convert her into a male for the sake of her target audience. But this is a very dangerous thing for Carol to allow herself to admit. She's stubborn as hell, but she's still human after all. If she has one weakness, it's her loneliness, which she sobs about openly when she's under the effects of sodium thiopental. What's to stop her from finally caving and asking Zosha to tap into Helen's memories, which she's done numerous times before, and essentially become her dead ex? At this point, it feels like only a matter of time before she does this, or at the very least makes out with her a little bit or something. And if she actually catches feelings, oh boy would that make things a whole lot more complicated for Carol. Ridding the world of the hive mind would mean giving up Helen a second time in some ways. Would she be able to handle that? Besides that, we learn a lot more about Carol's character in episodes 3 and 4. For instance, there's a little scene in episode 3 that jumps back in time a bit when Carol and Helen stayed at an ice hotel in Norway or somewhere up in that region and witnessed the Aurora Borealis together. Here we see that Helen was the person in the relationship who focused on the positives, while Carol was the one who always focused on the negatives.
Guess what? Sitting on a block of ice makes you feel like you have to pee.
Shocking, but it acts as sort of a retroactive foreshadowing. Carol's stubborn, overly critical attitude very well might be part of why she's immune to the hive mind virus. Helen, on the other hand, would have been the ideal hive mind member if the virus hadn't killed her. And if she'd somehow been immune like Carol, you have to wonder if she would have tried to convince her that assimilation wouldn't be so bad. It's water under the bridge at this point, but it's still interesting to think about. And in addition to finding out that Carol used to dabble in heroin when she was younger, we're given some devastating insight into why she is the way she is in episode 4. When she's talking to Zosha in the hospital, we learn that Carol's mother sent her to a conversion therapy camp when she was a kid.
You never forgave her.
No.
It was a terrible experience for you.
That definitely explains a few things about her, and it makes us feel for her in this situation even more. This worldwide takeover is basically causing her to relive that trauma of that childhood experience all over again, but on a global scale. It's actually pretty amazing that she's been able to keep herself together throughout the ordeal. Turns out that stubbornness of hers is a pretty handy coping mechanism. But does Carol win the most stubborn person in the world award? Actually, no. The award instead goes to Manuzos Oviedo, a Paraguayan storage facility manager who's also immune to the virus. The difference between him and Carol is that he wants nothing to do with the hive mind peeps. Not that Carol does either, but she's at least been willing to talk to them and reluctantly coexist with them while she angles for a way to thwart the takeover. Manuzos is on a whole other level. He apparently hasn't left his storage compound whatsoever since everything went down. This is evidenced by the fact that he would rather eat dog food than any of the good stuff the hive mind leaves for him. Look at his face, he won't even grimace in disgust in private. Beyond that, he's seemingly an intelligent guy and pretty methodical. We see that he's been searching every available frequency on his ham radio in an attempt to contact others who might also be immune to the virus, all to no avail. But everything changes for him when Carol gives him a few rings and cusses him out in Spanish after he hangs up on her a few times.
To moderate.
Now that he knows there's someone else like him out there, it's only a matter of time before he arranges to meet with her. Needless to say, we can't wait to see what they talk about. It's going to be a little clunky, of course, since Carol only speaks a little Spanish, and they're not going to be able to use the hive mind for translation purposes if they want to keep their discussion private. Do smartphones still work? Maybe they can just use a translation app. Much has been answered in these last few episodes, but it's all ultimately just led to more questions. How will Carol use a hive mind's willingness to hand over a nuclear bomb to her advantage? Yes, it's probably nothing more than hyperbole, but maybe she actually will think of a good reason to tactically deploy one. Like we started to discuss in the beginning of the video, there is the possibility of an actual alien race showing up at some point. Certain fans of the show have made this prediction, that this whole assimilation deal is just phase 1 of a much bigger extraterrestrial plan. Once a majority of humanity is rendered docile, the real threat will show up and effortlessly harvest whatever and whoever they please. This would actually sort of be a callback to that old Twilight Zone episode, The Serve Man. Remember that one? It's about an alien race that shows up and provides humanity with a book called To Serve Man, which helps them transform the world into a thriving utopia that no longer needs militaries. But the twist is that they're essentially just preparing them as a meal.
The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook.
A nuclear bomb, along with someone who can use it without worrying about defying their biological imperative, would be pretty useful in that scenario, right? We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but hey, it's fun to think about. The second most important question is, why is the hive mind having such a hard time finding a way to assimilate Carol and the others? As Zosha says in episode 4, the timeline is still pretty murky. How is a hyper-intelligent super consciousness not able to figure this out? Is there something more to this? Or is it nothing more than a plot device used by Vince Gilligan to provide a ticking clock? There's also the whole dozing Zosha with truth serum thing. Why didn't that whole ordeal cause the hive mind to glitch out? Sure, Carol wasn't angry with them or yelling at them, but it's still a form of antagonism, right? You'd think this would have upset them enough to cause a big freakout like in the second episode. It could be we're just thinking too much about it. Could also be a very important distinction that matters quite a bit later on. Maybe they do glitch out after all and we just don't get to see it until episode 5. We'll find out. And as for Manuzas, what's he all about? What's his history? Could he have been a scientist before he became a storage facility manager? A doctor? Something that would help Carol figure out how to stop the hive mind from accomplishing their ultimate goal. There's gotta be something special about him besides his supernatural ability to stomach dog food and not be all Rick Grimes about it. Like we said in the first video we did on Pluribus, we initially weren't that excited about the show before the premiere, the main reason being its obvious themes and how it's almost too topical for a society that's already oversaturated with ongoing debates about its many ills. The individual versus the mob, capitalism versus socialism, humans versus AI, tougher older generations versus newer ones who can't take even a little bit of criticism. It's all stuff that we all have pretty strong beliefs about already. The idea of a TV show providing us with the ultimate answer to these volatile conflicts is undeniably laughable.
I call bull on that.
But now that we're 4 episodes in, our verdict remains the same. Gilligan has found a way to explore all of these themes in a way that feels compelling instead of preachy. The comment sections on our videos and others like them on YouTube are evidence enough. Pretty much no one is getting into petty arguments over any of this stuff. Instead, most people have just been discussing the plot in a civilized manner and hypothesizing about what's coming next. This is pretty incredible considering how easy it is for someone as innocuous as a commercial or a one-sentence tweet to send the masses into a spiraling frenzy of digital punches and diatribes. The show's anything but over, of course. But at this point, it really does seem like the vibe will remain the same, and we're absolutely here for it.